19. Worst divorces. Black actors tried to hide. Some of these couples kept the divorce papers hidden for 2 full years, smiling in family photos while a judge had already signed. One split stayed locked inside a sealed courtroom that has never been opened, its true reasons a mystery to this day. One woman learned her marriage was over the same morning the rest of us did, from a tabloid photograph. Behind the awards and the red carpets, these beloved black stars fought the one battle they could never win with fame, and most of them fought it in total silence. Stay to the end, because the last story will stay with you. And subscribe to Secret Celebrity Stories, where the truth behind the headlines finally gets told. Will Smith and Sheree Zampino. Long before the world knew the Smith family as it exists today, there was Sheree Zampino. They married in 1992, just as Will was transforming from a sitcom star into a global movie force, and welcomed their son Trey. But the meteoric speed of that ascent placed a crushing weight on a very young marriage. Will has spoken candidly in the years since about lacking the emotional maturity the moment demanded, describing the end of that union as the greatest failure of his life at the time. They divorced in 1995, after roughly 3 years. What makes their story remarkable, though, isn't how it ended, it's what they built afterward. Over the next 30 years, Will, Sheree, and Will's second wife Jada Pinkett Smith constructed something Hollywood rarely manages: a genuinely blended family. Sheree became a fixture in the Smiths' life, appearing on Red Table Talk and vacationing alongside them, proving that an ex-wife need not be an adversary. Trey and Will endured a painful estrangement during his teenage years, which both have discussed openly, and slowly rebuilt their bond. That repair was possible because the adults refused to weaponize a child. Their journey is a lesson in redemptive maturity. The mistakes of youth do not have to define a lifetime. A failed marriage can become a lifelong friendship, if both people are willing to set their egos down for the sake of the children between them. Will and Sheree became the quiet gold standard for how to handle an early divorce, with enough grace that, decades later, everyone in the family is still standing in the same room together, laughing. Morgan Freeman and Myrna Lee. Morgan Freeman is the voice of authority in American cinema, a man whose presence commands instant respect. Behind the iconic roles stood a 26-year marriage to costume designer Myrna Lee, an accomplished artist in her own right, a foundational figure in the Black theater movement, whose work spans August Wilson's The Piano Lesson and museum exhibitions across the country. They married on June 16, 1984, long before Driving Miss Daisy made Freeman a household name, and lived quietly in rural Tallahatchie County, Mississippi, far from Hollywood. Then the marriage ended, and almost everything the public thinks it knows about how is wrong. Here is what the record actually shows. They separated in December 2007. Divorce papers were filed under seal in July 2008. A Mississippi judge entered the decree on September 15, 2010, without a trial. The terms were sealed by the court, and neither Freeman nor Lee has ever publicly explained why the marriage ended. Freeman's attorney said only that everyone was glad it was over. Tabloids have circulated enormous settlement figures for years, but the actual numbers remain sealed, meaning nobody outside that courtroom knows them. Rumors also linked the split to a 2008 car accident, but the couple had already separated 8 months before it happened, and the passenger publicly denied being a factor. That gap, between what was reported and what was proven, is the real story here. 2 private people ended a long marriage and declined to explain themselves to anyone. Their silence has been filled with speculation ever since. Perhaps the most dignified thing we can do is let the sealed record stay sealed, and remember Myrna Lee for the artistry that was always hers alone. Idris Elba and Hannah Norgaard. Before he was the global icon of cool, Idris Elba was a broke young actor in New York City, and Hannah Norgaard was the woman who believed in him first. They married in 1999 and moved from London to America with almost nothing. Hannah, a professional makeup artist, held the household together, while Idris worked as a doorman and DJ'd under the name Big Dries to cover rent. Their daughter Isan arrived in 2002, the year Idris broke through as Stringer Bell on The Wire. And that is where the story turns bittersweet, because success arrived and the marriage did not survive it. They divorced in 2003, as his name began to mean something. He has spoken since about how the pressures of that sudden climb, and the person he was at the time, cost him the marriage. What followed, though, was quietly extraordinary. Hanny never sold a story to the tabloids. She never traded her side of the pain for a paycheck. She raised their daughter and kept her dignity intact through every wave of her ex-husband's rising fame. Idris has publicly credited her strength, and years later, when Ihsan was named Golden Globe Ambassador in 2019, both parents stood beside her, proud and united. Their story is a lesson in the hidden tax of the climb. The person who helps you reach the mountaintop isn't always the one meant to stand there with you, and that isn't always anyone's fault. They proved that a marriage can be dismantled without destroying the respect for the history you shared, and that a man can reach the pinnacle of global fame and still look back with gratitude at the woman who was there when he had nothing. Cicely Tyson and Miles Davis. Cicely Tyson and Miles Davis were fire and ice, the regal queen of stage and screen, and the trumpet virtuoso who invented cool. Their bond spanned decades. She appeared on the cover of his 1967 album Sorcerer, but they did not marry until 1981, in a ceremony that felt like the union of two American institutions. What the public saw was sophistication. What Cicely lived, by her own account, was something far harder. Both of them wrote about it. In his own autobiography, Miles Davis acknowledged the drug use and the violence he brought into his relationships, in language stark enough that it removes any need for speculation here. In her memoir Just As I Am, published shortly before her death in 2021, Cicely described becoming his protector, searching for him, holding him through withdrawal, and eventually realizing that the darkness of his world was beginning to dim her own light. She was a woman of enormous faith and iron discipline, and even that was not enough. They divorced in 1988 after 7 years of marriage, though their connection endured until his death in 1991. She had to leave in order to survive. Their story is the sobering lesson at the center of this entire list. You cannot save a person who is not ready to save themselves, no matter how much genius or history you share. Cicely Tyson became the ultimate symbol of self-preservation, proving that even a queen must sometimes leave a king to keep her own crown. She lived another 33 years, collecting an honorary Oscar and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, a legacy defined by her own light and never by another's shadow. Halle Berry and Olivier Martinez. Halle Berry broke Hollywood's most stubborn ceiling as the first black woman to win the Academy Award for Best Actress. Her romantic life, by contrast, has been a long and very public odyssey. She met French actor Olivier Martinez on the set of Dark Tide in 2010, and the connection was immediate. They married in a French chateau in 2013, and welcomed their son Masio the same year. For a moment it seemed she had found a partner who could match her intensity, but the union was strained almost from the start by forces outside it. A bruising custody battle involving her previous partner, and a widely reported physical altercation between Martinez and that ex on Thanksgiving Day 2012. Halle filed for divorce in 2015, after roughly 2 years of marriage. And then came the part almost nobody expects. The marriage lasted 2 years. The divorce took 8. It was not finalized until August 2023, making it one of the longest-running divorce cases in modern Hollywood history. Reports indicated the settlement involved substantial ongoing child support obligations, reflecting the extraordinary financial complexity that surrounds a star of her magnitude. Halle's story is a sobering education in the machinery of the contract. For someone at her level, a marriage is never only a romantic union. It is a legal and financial entanglement that can take the better part of a decade to unwind. She endured a system that too often rewards conflict over resolution, all while shielding a small boy from the noise. She remains a symbol of stubborn perseverance, proof that even an Oscar winner faces the same exhausting grind as anyone else, and that peace, when it finally comes, is worth every year of the fight. Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa. Few unions ever felt as spiritually aligned as Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa. To our generation, Lisa was the ethereal bohemian who defined an era on The Cosby Show. Jason became the tattooed force of nature in Aquaman. They met at a Los Angeles jazz club in 2005. And Momoa has told the story 100 times of the crush he'd carried since childhood, watching her on television and telling his mother he would find her one day. They built a sanctuary together, raising Lola and Nakoa Wolf away from the cameras, and maintaining a famously warm relationship with Bonade's ex-husband Lenny Kravitz. They finally married in October 2017, and then the timeline reveals what the headlines hid. Court documents later listed their actual separation date as October 7, 2020, their third wedding anniversary. The world didn't learn anything until January 12, 2022, when they released a joint statement about parting ways in marriage. Even then, no filing followed for 2 more years. Bonet, whose legal name is Lilikoi Moon, formally petitioned on January 8, 2024. The settlement was reached the very next day, and the divorce became final on July 9, 2024. They were granted joint custody, waived spousal support entirely, and divided their assets without a single dispute. Their separation was never a scandal. It was a slow, deliberate transformation, conducted almost entirely in private. Lisa and Jason showed us that a divorce need not be a failure. It can be an act of honoring one's own truth. Their legacy is a lesson in the maturity required to release something you love so that both souls can stay whole, and in how much dignity 2 people can preserve simply by refusing to explain themselves. Forest Whitaker and Keisha Nash. Forest Whitaker is a titan of the screen, an Oscar-winning artist whose depth of soul shows in every frame. For 22 years, Keisha Nash was his companion and his muse. They met on the set of the 1994 film Blown Away, where she played his girlfriend, and married in 1996. Keisha, a former model, stood beside him at every award show through the greatest years of his career, and together they raised a blended family of 4 children. To Black Hollywood, they were quiet giants, a marriage as steady and unshowy as Forrest's own body of work. So the news of their divorce in December 2018 landed as a genuine shock. Forrest filed, citing irreconcilable differences, and in true Whitaker fashion, the proceedings unfolded with almost no tabloid drama at all. They shielded the pain of that transition to protect the legacy of 2 decades together, and neither turned their history into a spectacle. But this story carries a heavier weight than most on this list. Keisha Nash Whitaker died in December 2023, at just 51 years old. Her family had spoken publicly about her health struggles in the preceding years, and her passing was mourned across the industry. Forrest's tribute made something clear, that the divorce papers never could. The love and respect he held for the mother of his children remained a sacred part of his life. Their story is a sobering lesson in the weight of time. Even when a marriage ends, the decades of shared history and the children raised within them are a success in their own right. Her death reminds us how fragile all of it is, and that the years spent building a family are never, ever wasted. Lawrence Fishburne and Gina Torres. Lawrence Fishburne and Gina Torres were the thespian power couple. He a towering figure from The Matrix to John Wick, she the commanding presence of Suits and Firefly. When they married in 2002 at the Cloisters in New York City, it felt like a royal wedding for Black Hollywood. For 15 years, they were a formidable intellectual duo, almost never appearing in gossip columns, raising their daughter Delilah, and a blended family that valued privacy over the shallow currency of the red carpet. They were the couple you pointed to when you wanted to see what prestige looked like inside a modern marriage. The cracks only became visible to the public in 2017, when photographs surfaced of Torres with another man. What happened next was a masterclass in controlling one's own narrative. Rather than let a scandal bloom, Gina simply issued a statement revealing that she and Lawrence had quietly separated a full year earlier, in 2016. They had already been living apart, already grieving, already transitioning their family, entirely in the dark, without a single leak. Lawrence filed for divorce shortly after the revelation, and the split was finalized with a professional efficiency that mirrored their careers. Financial details and custody arrangements stayed private, They refused to turn 15 years of history into courtroom entertainment. Their story is a lesson in the art of the private transition. We do not owe the public a front row seat to our most painful moments. Lawrence and Gina uncoupled with such grace that the world barely noticed the shift until the hard work was already finished, and the respect they'd earned over a decade and a half remained intact, serving as a shield for the family they had built. Anthony Mackie and Shaletta Chapital. Anthony Mackie soared to global heights as Captain America, and he has always guarded his private life with something close to tactical precision. His marriage to Shaletta Chapital was the fortress at the center of it. Their story began in a second-grade classroom in New Orleans, a genuine love-at-first-sight moment for a 7-year-old Anthony. They were a Hollywood anomaly, a rising star, and a woman who had known him long before fame, fortune, or a single camera flash. They married in a private ceremony in Punta Cana in 2014 and brought 4 sons into a world they fiercely shielded from public view. The shock, when it came, was not the divorce itself. It was the discovery that it had already happened almost 2 years earlier. Mackie quietly filed in late 2017. The proceedings were finalized in 2018, and it was not until late 2019 that media outlets stumbled across the legal filings at all. For roughly 700 days, Mackie navigated Marvel press tours, the global explosion of Avengers, Endgame, and the relentless demands of public life, all while privately processing the end of a lifelong partnership. There were no messy posts, no leaked messages, no mudslinging. They agreed to joint custody of their 4 boys and put the children's stability above every personal grievance. The reasons remain locked behind the door of their own history, where they belong. Anthony's story is a reminder of the hidden storms celebrities weather while smiling for our cameras. Fame is a performance. Pain is personal. He showed that even in an age of compulsive oversharing, it is still possible to protect the sanctity of your family's hardest transition, and that real strength needs no audience. Tina Knowles and Richard Lawson. Tina Knowles is the matriarch of a global dynasty, the woman who raised Beyoncé and Solange and built a business empire in her own right. After her high-profile divorce from Matthew Knowles, watching her find love again with veteran actor Richard Lawson felt like a collective joy. They married in 2015 aboard a yacht in Newport Beach, radiating the particular happiness of second-chance love. Richard, a seasoned actor with decades of credits behind him, seemed a perfect match for Tina's vibrant, business-savvy spirit. For 8 years, they were the cool aunt and uncle of Black Hollywood, sharing their travels and blended family with an infectiousness that told older adults everywhere it is never too late. So her filing in July 2023 genuinely stunned people. She cited irreconcilable differences, and true to the Knowles family's privacy-first protocol, the split was handled with absolute discretion. The divorce was finalized in 2024. The settlement was clean and specific. Neither party was granted spousal support, and reports indicated a one-time payment as part of the arrangement. Tina also asked the court to restore her name to Knowles, a quiet, firm signal that the chapter was closed. They kept whatever went wrong entirely out of the press, refusing to let private pain become public spectacle. Tina's journey is an empowering lesson in self-worth at any age. It is never too late to prioritize your own peace, and starting over is a sign of strength rather than failure. Her value was never determined by the man beside her, but by the strength of her own character. She proved that a queen is defined by her own crown, no matter how many times she must reach up and adjust it. Wendy Williams and Kevin Hunter. Wendy Williams built an empire on the promise of saying exactly what she meant. For more than 2 decades, her husband Kevin Hunter was not just her partner, but the architect of her business, serving as manager and executive producer of her daytime show. Their union was a formidable structure that weathered health crises, addiction battles, and years of rumors. Viewers watched Wendy defend Kevin with fierce, almost defiant loyalty. Wendy in the purple chair, Kevin behind the scenes, and their marriage was presented as unbreakable. Then, in April 2019, it broke in the most public way imaginable. Reports confirmed that Hunter had been involved in a long-term affair and had fathered a child with another woman. For a broadcaster who made her living discussing other people's secrets, becoming the subject of one was a devastating reversal. Wendy filed almost immediately, ending a marriage of roughly 21 years and a business partnership that had defined her career. Hunter was removed from the show. The fallout was swift and brutal, and it unfolded while she was simultaneously managing Graves' disease and a publicly scrutinized struggle with sobriety. Wendy's story deserves particular care today. She has since been placed under a court-ordered guardianship, and in February 2024, her care team announced she had been diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia and frontotemporal dementia. She is a person navigating a serious illness, not a punchline. Her divorce chapter remains a raw lesson in the price of the crown, that powerful women can still be wounded by the people they trust most, and that the strength required to say, "I am done" at 50, in front of millions, is a form of courage most of us will never be asked to summon. Terrence Howard and Mira Pak. Terrence Howard's intensity in Hustle and Flow and Empire earned him a permanent seat among Hollywood's most magnetic performers. His personal life has been considerably harder to map. He married Mira Pak, a former model and restaurateur, in late 2013 after a whirlwind romance, at the height of his Empire fame. They welcomed 2 sons, Kirin and Hiro, and appeared to the world as a united front against the industry's pressures. But the images did not match the paperwork. In a development that defines this entire list, it emerged in 2015, during unrelated court proceedings involving a previous marriage, that Terrence and Mira had quietly divorced in July of that year, while she was pregnant with their second child. The public was stunned. They had continued to attend events together and share family photographs as though nothing had changed. The divorce was handled in near total secrecy, and then came the twist only Hollywood could produce. The pair reconciled, and in 2018, they became engaged again. Their relationship has existed ever since, in a space that defies the vocabulary of married or divorced, of together or apart. Their story is a lesson in private complexity. What we see on a screen or a social feed is almost always a carefully selected fragment of something much larger and much more difficult. Some bonds are too tangled for a court document to define, and sometimes a divorce is not an ending at all, merely a pause in a far longer conversation. Whatever the label, Terrence and Mira demonstrated that the only opinion of a marriage that finally matters belongs to the 2 people inside it. Vanessa Williams and Rick Fox. Vanessa Williams is the ultimate survivor of the entertainment industry, a Miss America pioneer who rebuilt herself into a singer, a Broadway star, and an unforgettable presence on Ugly Betty. When she married Los Angeles Lakers forward Rick Fox in 1999, it looked like a match assembled in A-list heaven. For 5 years, they navigated the twin pressure cookers of professional sports in Hollywood, while raising their daughter Sasha. To the public, they were the very picture of glamour and success. But the geography was punishing. Vanessa filmed in New York. Rick's career kept him in Los Angeles, and the distance opened cracks the tabloids were eager to widen. The cruelty of their split was in the delivery. In 2004, a tabloid published photographs of Rick in a compromising position with another woman, and Vanessa reportedly learned of the trouble in her marriage, the same way the rest of us did. Rather than spiral into a public feud, she absorbed the blow with a legendary composure. Rick filed shortly afterward, and the divorce was finalized in 2005. What they built next is the reason their story belongs here. They achieved a genuine, lasting friendship. Years later, they even played a divorced couple together on Ugly Betty, a piece of casting so knowing it doubled as a public statement. Their mutual love for their daughter had outlasted the bitterness. Vanessa's journey is a masterclass in unshakable dignity. A public betrayal does not have to break your spirit or your reputation, and you can forgive someone completely without ever staying married to them. She proved that the most powerful answer to a scandal is simply to keep winning, head high, talent leading the way. Blair Underwood and Desiree DaCosta. Blair Underwood has long been the gold standard of the leading man, sophisticated, gifted, and seemingly untouchable by the industry's usual scandals. For 27 years, his marriage to Desiree DaCosta was cited as the blueprint for a successful Hollywood union, a rare constant in a town where relationships are as fleeting as a summer release. They married in 1994 and built a life of quiet elegance, raising 3 children well outside the paparazzi's glare. Desiree, once an executive assistant to Eddie Murphy, understood the industry's mechanics intimately and chose instead to protect the sanctity of their home, creating the stability from which Blair thrived in everything from LA Law to Dear White People. So the joint statement they released in May 2021 felt like the closing of an era. They described their transition as a beautiful journey that had naturally reached its conclusion, and emphasized that their children remained the priority. Unlike the litigious wars that so often define celebrity splits, theirs was a study in maturity. No infidelity rumors, no financial warfare, no public disparagement. After nearly 3 decades, they had simply evolved into different people, and the most honoring thing available to them was to release one another into the next chapter. Blair's story is a lesson in the grace of the exit. A marriage doesn't have to end in flames to be over. Sometimes it ends in a quiet, mutual understanding. The length of a marriage is not its only measure of success. The quality of the friendship that survives the signing is just as vital. They showed that you can spend a lifetime with someone, raise a beautiful family, and still find the courage to admit that the season has changed. Taye Diggs and Idina Menzel. Taye Diggs and Idina Menzel were the golden couple of the theater world, and their love story began exactly where it should have, in the original 1996 Broadway cast of Rent, the production that remade musical theater. Watching Taye, the suave leading man of How Stella Got Her Groove Back, alongside Idina, the powerhouse voice behind Wicked and later Frozen, felt like a fairy tale written for people who love the stage. They married in 2003 and welcomed their son Walker in 2009. For a decade, they maintained a low-profile, mutually supportive marriage, while both of their careers reached global altitude, and they seemed built to last because they shared the same roots and the same reverence for craft. So their separation announcement in 2013 was a quiet shock. There were no infidelity rumors and no financial warfare. Fitting this list's theme precisely, they had been drifting apart for some time, working on opposite coasts, saying nothing. They handled the 2014 divorce with such surgical privacy that it concluded within months, and almost nothing leaked. Taye later admitted that the pressures of being a celebrity couple and the public's expectations of them had weighed heavily. They ended the marriage in order to save the friendship, ensuring their son grew up surrounded by peace instead of tension. Their story is a lesson in the necessity of the pivot. Some relationships are meant to be a beautiful season rather than a lifetime, and a good divorce is one where the children never have to choose a side. They proved you can celebrate a decade of love without letting its ending define you, and that the most important performance an actor ever gives happens off camera, for the sake of a child. Meagan Good and Devon Franklin. Meagan Good and Devon Franklin were more than a power couple. They were something like a spiritual institution. Meagan had been in the spotlight since childhood. Devon was a high-ranking film executive and an ordained minister. Together they offered a new blueprint for faith-centered relationships. And when they married in 2012, they became living symbols of discipline and devotion, famously documenting their journey of celibacy before marriage in their best-selling book, The Wait. For nearly a decade, they were the go-to voices on marriage in the Black community, touring churches and talk shows about spiritual alignment. Everyone believed they would defy the Hollywood curse, because their foundation seemed built on something higher than fame, which is exactly why their December 2021 announcement landed so hard. After 9 years, they revealed they were divorcing, stating plainly that there was no one to blame, and that they had simply reached the end of their journey as husband and wife. Devon filed as their 10th anniversary approached, and the divorce was finalized in June 2022. There was no fight over assets. A prenuptial agreement was in place, and both waived spousal support. Meagan later described the split as the most difficult thing she had ever faced, made heavier by the public, spiritual platform they had built together. Their story is a poignant reminder that even the most well-intentioned unions are not immune to human growth. People are not brands. A marriage can be successful for a season without lasting a lifetime. They taught us that it takes immense courage to admit a path has ended, while the whole world is watching and waiting for you to succeed, and that our worth was never tied to our relationship status. Paula Patton and Robin Thicke. Paula Patton and Robin Thicke were the entertainment world's high school sweethearts. Their story began in an all-ages Los Angeles club when they were teenagers, and it lasted 21 years, including 9 of marriage. Paula became a striking presence in Deja Vu and Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol. Robin's career detonated with Blurred Lines. We watched them grow from kids into a global power couple, welcoming their son Julian in 2010. People believed in them precisely because they had put in the time, together long before the fame, the money, or the recognition. But 2013 brought Robin a level of celebrity that seemed to fracture their foundation. Between a widely criticized VMA performance and mounting public strain, the pressure reached a breaking point. Paula filed for divorce in 2014, and a 2-decade bond unraveled in front of everyone. The divorce was finalized in 2015, and a contentious custody dispute followed, in which serious claims were raised on both sides. It's worth being careful here. Those competing allegations were litigated in family court and never resolved into any public finding, and it would be wrong for anyone to state them as established fact. What is not in dispute is that Paula retreated into a long period of healing, focusing on her son and reclaiming her peace after the collapse of her first and only great love. Her journey is a lesson in the weight of history. Sometimes the person you grow up with is not the person you're meant to grow old with, and no amount of shared history obligates you to sacrifice your peace to preserve a past that no longer exists. It takes staggering courage to walk away from the only life you have ever known. Tia Mowry and Corey Hardrict. Tia Mowry has been a fixture in our homes since Sister, and her marriage to Corey Hardrict was a narrative many of us genuinely cherished. It began on a Los Angeles street corner where Tia and her twin sister Tamara offered a struggling young actor a ride. That small kindness blossomed into a 22-year journey that included 14 years of marriage, a timeline that seemed to defy every Hollywood stereotype. Corey built a career on gritty roles in films like American Sniper. Tia became the queen of sitcoms and lifestyle branding. They welcomed 2 children, Cree and Cairo, and shared their family life with a warmth that made viewers feel like part of the inner circle. They were the couple who grew up together, transitioning from young actors into industry players, while keeping their bond intact. So the disbelief in October 2022, when Tia filed for divorce, was widespread. There were no whispers of scandal, no leaked infidelity, no public outbursts. Instead, Tia shared a thoughtful post about the seasons of life, explaining that while their romantic path had ended, their love as a family remained. The divorce was finalized in 2023, with a settlement reflecting genuine mutual respect, joint legal and physical custody, and notably, neither party requested spousal or child support. Tia's journey is a beautiful study in self-evolution. Choosing yourself is not a betrayal of your partner. It is honesty toward your own soul. A successful marriage isn't only one that lasts until death. It's one where both people emerge kinder and more authentic than they entered. They showed that you can dismantle a marriage without dismantling a family, and that the end of a contract is not the end of a legacy.